With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories. Prime Minister Drew continues support of Cuba's medical missions at OECS 76th meeting. Shanice Harvey, 18, identified as victim of White Gate accident. U.S. visa restriction proposals draw ire from Caribbean leaders and nationals. Southwell Street roadwork project begins in Newtown.
St. Kitts to host a Carrie Lake conference focused on human resource, corporate communications, and customer service.
Guyana president says no dialogue with Venezuela to be had under duress. ECHO appeals landmark copyright case in Dominica. Internationally, U.S. economy under pressure. Inflation and unemployment have risen for 2025. Now, the details. During an interview in St. Martin at the 76th meeting of the OECS Authority, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, addressed the role of the diaspora and the nation's sustainable island vision, speaking with Korea Christopher, Acting Director of Communications for the Government of Virgin Islands. Dr. Drew emphasized the importance of regional cooperation in tackling shared challenges such as climate change and food security, and discussed a topic on many people's minds, the region's relationship with Cuba. Prime Minister Drew affirmed the positive impact of the healthcare relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis and Cuba, noting that many lives have been saved and transformed positively through this partnership. He reassured that the government would do all it could to ensure the continued development of healthcare for the benefit of its people. Prime Minister Drew continued the regional consensus regarding healthcare in reaffirming the positive relationship with Cuba.
Over the many years, our relationship as far as our healthcare system with Cuba has really been positive for our people. Many lives have been saved, many lives have been transformed positively. And therefore, we'll do all that we can to make sure that an environment that is conducive for the continued development of healthcare for the benefit of our people and all those who come. So I would say it has been positive for us, and our people know that as well.
He assured that his government would continue to foster an environment conducive to the development of healthcare for the benefit of all. Prime Minister Drew reiterated St. Kitts and Nevis' ambitious goal to become the first sustainable island state in the Caribbean.
We have a lofty goal. We want to become the first sustainable island state in the whole of the Caribbean region and possibly the world, and we are on track. So together, we must work.
St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister called for a collective effort to achieve this vision. A road fatality has been confirmed. The accident reportedly occurred in the White Gate area between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. on St. Kitts. The confirmed deceased is one female aged 18 who is identified as Shanice Harvey of Diep Bay. The vehicle, a van, contained 8 persons, the driver and 7 passengers. The others sustained multiple injuries. No specific details are available at the time of reporting regarding who the other passengers were or what injuries they may have sustained. More on this as information becomes available. The U.S. government's proposed visa restrictions have sparked significant criticism from regional leaders and nationals, raising concerns about potential economic and social instability in the Caribbean. A recent report by multiple international news agencies alluding to a list of possible countries to face visa restrictions, as well as the restriction concerning Cuba and its medical missions in the region, has been hot on the minds of the entire Caribbean basin. While the Department of State spokesperson for the United States, Tammy Bruce, indicated that there is no list, she mentioned that a review is being done, and the results of that review will be shared in due course. In response, former government tourism minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dwyer Asafan, said that while there is no list, something is in the works.
Well, Miss Bruce from the State Department pretty much gives it away by saying there's no list, but there is a review. One would presume, without being cynical, that in the process of reviewing the situation, countries would be listed informally with the intention ultimately to present a formal list. So there's no official list, but I don't think something would get into the New York Times unless it came from a reliable source. And so, as she said, there's nothing to discuss. I don't agree. There is something to discuss. But the governments in these islands are in a difficult situation already. And it really would help if there is conversation, good, friendly conversation between the two governments. Well, the governments of the United States and the government of the United States and the governments in these islands, to prevent even speculation about lists, because these islands are so vulnerable economically that information like this coming out can already breed tentativeness among investors, travelers, and that sort of thing. So whether this information slipped out by accident from the US government or by intention, it certainly has raised the levels of anxiety in these islands.
The controversy stems from speculation that the restrictions are linked to the U.S. government's review of countries participating in the Cuba Medical Mission and CBI programs. Astafan addressed the issue in an interview on the DBS St. Lucia Special Report program, cautioning against the potential ramifications of such policies. Astafan highlighted the vulnerability of Caribbean economies to external shocks, emphasizing the critical role of tourism.
Unless there is utmost care and caution by the decision makers in the United States, these islands could be put under the hammer.
He warned, noting the potential for reduced airlift, investor dividends, and job losses. He further cautioned that overly aggressive measures could inadvertently push these countries
further and further into the arms of China, which is the last thing that the United States should want.
Astafan urged the process to be guided by sound reason, advocating consultation and consideration of the region's unique circumstances. Referencing Secretary of State Marco Rubio's America First policy, Astafan acknowledged the right of every country to prioritize its citizens, but questioned the long-term sustainability of policies that undermine the strength of its allies.
What good is America to us, or we to America, if we are weak? Because if your strength comes at the expense of our strength and keeps us in perpetual weakness, then your strength is not going to be sustainable.
Astafan advocated for shifting away from a competitive first mentality toward a collaborative approach that recognizes the challenging global landscape.
And this thing about best, we are the best, we are the greatest, they need to stop that. It's not doing them any good, especially in a changing world. And the world is changing whether they like it or not.
The ramifications of Cuba's visa restrictions are left to be seen as the region continues to hold fast to their solidarity with Cuba. Roadwork has officially begun on Southwest Street in Newtown, marking a significant infrastructure upgrade for the community. The project, which aims to resurface the entire Southwell Drive, is led by the Public Works Department and has been met with enthusiasm from local representatives. The Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, Deputy Prime Minister and MP for Constituency No. 1, where the road work is taking place, shared his gratitude for the project's commencement. Dr. Hanley highlighted the importance of the project and its long-awaited start.
I'm very honored to be here at Southwell Drive, Ponds Pasture, where the Public Works crew from roads, they're here. As you would see that they are removing the road and they are going to do resurfacing of the entire Southwell Drive, a road that would not have been dealt with in just about 9 years. We are now at the point where we are able to deliver that road as I promised. I know it might have caused some inconvenience for the residents and users, and as usual, whenever I had an opportunity, I would always apologize, but I always gave the assurance that we will deliver the road.
The Deputy Prime Minister also acknowledged the support of the Minister of Infrastructure and the Public Works Department, emphasizing their collaborative effort to bring the project to fruition.
And now that Public Works were able to get the machineries fixed and ready, this happened to be one of the very first priority projects that they took on, and I'm very grateful for the support from the Minister of Infrastructure, the Honorable Conrad Maynard, and his entire team in ensuring that we live up to what we say we are going to do in delivering on our promises. This was one that I personally spoke about. I gave them that assurance that the road would be done. So I am very pleased this morning that Public Works are here in their full force, ensuring that we deliver on this road. But after 9 years, I am happy that I am able to deliver this road to the people of Funds Pasture. Thank you, Public Works.
The roadwork is expected to improve residents' quality of life and enhance community connectivity.
The St. Kitts Electricity Company Limited, SCELEC, will host partners and colleagues at the Carolec Human Resource Corporate Communications and Customer Service Conference from March 23 to 26, 2025 at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort. The conference theme, Beyond Compliance, Creating a Culture of Caring, Communication and Commitment, duplicates Carolec's aim to create a supportive and thriving workplace culture and improve customer service. The Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation, Carolec, in partnership with SCELEC, will provide this development opportunity through interactive workshops, insightful, thought-provoking panel discussions, and networking. The agenda for the Carolec Human Resource, Corporate Communications and Customer Service Conference was published. It features a mix of local, regional, and international presenters representing approximately 20 utilities. The governor of the St. Kitts headquartered Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, was invited to deliver the keynote address. SCELEC's Corporate Communications Manager, Patrice Harris, will be a featured presenter. In the second session, Harris will explore the topic Addressing Organizational Anxiety, the Roadmap to Psychological Safety. She is likely to hone in on the root causes of anxiety in the electricity generation sector, explore communication strategies that can address challenges associated with organizational anxiety, and share the importance of building trust, enhancing emotional support, and promoting a culture of psychological safety and well-being. Another Kittitian presenter, Curtis Martin, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, will facilitate the 13th session, which will focus on the topic Customer Service Leadership Experience. The forum will feature several other topics, including leveraging AI for customer and employee success, using social media analytics to guide key messages and customer engagement, a case for compassionate communication, human capital management advancing through technology, positive intelligence, the secret of formidable teams, and improving public perception, making the shift to being trusted by consumers. A presentation will also be made about the partnership between Carolec and Walden University, while a few panelists will take center stage to discuss the topic Post-Hurricane Disaster Restoration, a safety and mental health perspective. Attendees to the conference will be allowed to venture deeper into the destination with a sunset cruise and an island tour dubbed Island Explosion, Discover the Heart of St. Kitts. The conference will open and close with a cocktail affair.
In regional news, Guyana president says no dialogue with Venezuela to be had under duress, Guyana News source reports.
President Irfan Ali made it clear that there will be no dialogue with Venezuela under duress. Speaking at the commissioning of a new Guyana Defense Force Air Corps hangar at the Eugene F. Correa Airport at Ogle, the president said Venezuela continues to defy the letter and spirit of the Argyle Declaration and the provisional measures issued by the International Court of Justice. He made reference to the recent incursion by a Venezuelan Navy vessel in Guyana's waters and the country's increasing aggression towards Guyana.
The very fact that they would seek to hold an elections in territory that does not belong to them tells you that they're not serious about dialogue. They're not serious about the Argyle Declaration. And we will not be drawn into any discourse on the duress. We are all for dialogue, but dialogue with respect.
The president said if Venezuela wants to talk, the country must first undo the acts that have violated the Argyle Declaration and the orders of the International Court.
Let it first demonstrate good faith. Let it first respect the rule of law. Until then, there will be no talks. sovereignty is not a matter for negotiation. Even as we repose our confidence in the rule of international law and in diplomacy, we are not blind to the realities of the world we live in.
Venezuela has been stepping up its claim of Guyana's Essequibo region and has even announced plans to host elections for a governor of Guyana's Essequibo. But the government of Guyana has condemned those plans and has alerted the international community. President Ali said a strong nation must have the means to identify and deter threats, while noting that investments are being made for improved and better monitoring of Guyana's bordering regions.
We are sending a signal. We are speaking with a unified voice that we stand firm as a country and as a people. And in standing firm, we will make every investment necessary to ensure we have what it takes to secure our nation's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
The president noted that heavy investments in the Guyana Defense Force is not for war or aggression, but for protection, development, and the national security of Guyana.
ECHO appeals landmark copyright case in Dominica. DBS St. Lucia has the details.
The Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court's Court of Appeal has granted ECHO leave to challenge the dismissal of its claims.
In February of 2024, a promoter in Dominica refused to take an ECHO license, and as such, we sued for infringement according to the Copyright Act of Dominica. And not just the promoter, we also sued the owner of the premise, which was the Botanical Gardens, which is owned by the government.
According to ECHO CEO Martin Alson James, the lawsuit was initially thrown out in December of 2024 due to a lack of representation. However, James remains hopeful about a positive outcome.
We have filed an appeal, and we've been granted leave to appeal that matter. So that is that is out there. We filed, and the deadline was the 12th of March 2025, and the Supreme Court have found it definitely fitting, and the court responds that we have a real prospect of success, and we have every confidence that we will prevail in this matter.
While some have accused ECHO of targeting the event's high revenues, James insists the lawsuit is about protecting creatives and bolstering the region's orange economy. He stressed that public performance licenses are critical to ensuring that artists are fairly compensated.
The case is not about stifling creativity or hindering business within the orange economy. It's really ensuring that the rightful owners of the copyright, control how the works are being used.
The case underscores tensions between copyright enforcement and the live events industry. ECHO hopes it will encourage promoters to comply with the Copyright Acts in Dominica and the wider OECS, where public performance licenses are mandatory to protect creators' rights. For the DBS Newsworld, Manasseh Stanislas reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
Well, let's pick out some cans.
No salt.
Chris Richey and Carmen Carey are retirees struggling with the rising cost of groceries.
And the price of food has really gone high, the
eggs.
But you won't find any prices here. The Manna Food Center Market in Silver Spring, Maryland, gives away everything on the shelves for free. Its director says the charity serves about 5,000 families a month.
We expect to see increasing demand, and right now we're tight as it is.
Inflation and unemployment have both risen since Donald Trump took office, despite his campaign promises of economic prosperity. Richey says he voted for Trump. He doesn't like the higher prices, but thinks they're temporary.
You want America to get stronger,
And this is the price that you think you have to pay for that?
Yeah.
Others are more worried.
And it makes it hard on people, especially people on disability or food stamps.
Eggs have seen the most price volatility, not only from inflation, but from a scarcity crisis due to the avian flu. Eggs in American grocery stores are averaging close to $5 a dozen, and they're spiking to almost $20 a dozen, which is a record high. And according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, their prices are expected to go up another 40% by year's end. Then there's Trump's on-again, off-again tariffs against China, Mexico, Canada, and come April, possibly the rest of the world.
On the tariffs we have right now, you're talking anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per person in increased prices over the next year. The reality, though, is that we just don't know how long these tariffs will be in place.
All of that amounts to a lot of uncertainty. Experts say the U.S. economy is still relatively strong, but no one knows how long that will last. Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Silver Spring, Maryland.
The Sudanese army has recaptured the presidential palace in the capital Khartoum from occupying rebel forces. It could be a decisive turning point in the country's brutal civil war. Both sides are accused of widespread atrocities in a conflict that's devastated one of Africa's poorest regions. The war began 2 years ago when a paramilitary group, the RSF, challenged the army in a vicious struggle for power. Since then, tens of thousands of people have died, and more than 8 million have been forced to flee their homes. Our correspondent Barbara Plett-Usher reached Khartoum as the army gained control and has sent this report.
Hands up and triumphant, seizing back Sudan's presidential palace, an important symbol of power. Inside, remnants of heavy fighting against the paramilitary RSF. Now, the army's recaptured much of Khartoum's strategic center. We were given access as the military launched this offensive.
These troops are heading into the battle zone in Khartoum, says the army, to carry out a special operation against RSF fighters there.
The intense battles followed weeks of an army advance. These videos posted by soldiers showing the surge towards the palace. But military successes don't ease the civilian cost of the war. At this morgue, more victims of shelling, this time a man and his wife. They were taking their boy to preschool, a neighbor tells us. Next to him, the dead man's brother, still in shock. This neighborhood is in the line of fire between the army and the RSF. Little Omnia was in her mother's arms when the shell struck. Her survival seen as a miracle, orphaned along with 3 brothers.
We'll tell them exactly what happened, about the shelling and the war. They are the generation of the future. We will not allow this to affect them in the future. We will try to make up to them the affection of their mother and father, even though it's hard.
Yet again, the women gather to mourn. Nothing like normal life is possible, they tell me.
We wake up and fall asleep to the sound of shelling. The children are always in a state of terror. We are always in a state of sadness.
The scale of death is measured by the expanding graveyard. These fresh graves, we're told, hold victims of RSF fire. But both sides are condemned for war crimes, the army accused of mass killings elsewhere. Abdin Durma dug graves before the war. Now he does nothing else. The dead due also to a health system overwhelmed by conflict. Bodies come straight from the hospital, he says. 25, 30, sometimes 50 per day.
There's no time to sleep until the last body is buried, and then I sleep for half an hour or 15 minutes until I get another call. People die from bullets, from shelling. People are killed sitting in their homes. There's so much death.
The army now believes it's on course to retake the rest of the capital. But they remain a long way still from winning the war. And the wounds of this conflict will continue to haunt Sudan. Barbara Plett-Usher, BBC News in the Sudanese capital.
U.S. stocks finished higher on Friday, ending well off their lows, with the Dow and S&P closing marginally higher, while the Nasdaq added 0.5%. Comments from President Donald Trump gave markets a lift after he said there will be flexibility on tariffs expected to begin in early April, and that his top trade chief plans to speak with his Chinese counterpart next week. Trump also reiterated his plan to use tariffs to narrow the U.S. trade deficit with China. Logan Capital Management portfolio manager Bill Fitzpatrick says in a challenging environment like this, investors have to move away from mega-cap tech stocks that have soared over the past few years.
I think it is fair to say this is a stock-picking market, and I think the lesson for investors today is to focus on diversification. Leadership was very narrow the last couple of years. And I think now is a pretty good example of, why you maintain diversification, why you're in value stocks, why you're in international equities. And that discipline is being rewarded year to date, and we suspect that will continue.
Stocks on the move included FedEx, which slid about 6.5% after the package delivery firm cut its full-year profit and revenue forecasts, citing continued weakness and uncertainty in the U.S. industrial economy. Shares of Nike lost about 5.5% after the sports apparel maker projected a sharper decline in fourth quarter revenue than analysts had anticipated. And Boeing rose 3% after Trump awarded the plane maker a contract to build the U.S. Air Force's most sophisticated fighter jet, beating out rival Lockheed Martin, shares of which fell nearly 6%.
From the performance of world stocks to Britain's budget, these are the stories to watch in business and finance in the coming week. U.S. equities are bleeding money at one of the fastest weekly rates on record, and the cash is finding a home in previously neglected markets. Europe's Stoxx 600 is set for a gain of around 9% in the first quarter, against the S&P's 4.5% loss. Chinese tech stocks have shot up, with a regional index over 30% higher, while a basket of Wall Street's big tech stocks is down 15%. World stocks minus the United States are heading for their best first quarter performance since 2019. Investors are taking note. Investors wary of signs of slowing growth and tariff uncertainty get a raft of fresh U.S. data in the coming week, including a key inflation gauge. February's Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, a closely watched measure of inflation, is due on March 28th. The Federal Reserve recently lifted its expectation for PCE, projecting it would end the year at 2.7%, up from a previous forecast of 2.5%. Measures of consumer confidence and consumer sentiment will also be in the spotlight. UK investors are about to discover whether weak growth and unexpectedly high borrowing have blown the Labour government's budget goals far enough off course for markets to call for a return to austerity measures. Alongside Finance Minister Rachel Reeves's March 26 spring statement, the Office for Budget Responsibility is expected to reduce forecasts that, back in October, assumed the government would just meet its self-imposed spending rules. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has warned that even a minor downgrade would force Reeves to choose between tax increases, spending cuts, or months of, quote, damaging speculation about what she will do in the autumn budget. Australia and Tokyo will get their inflation report cards as central bankers around the world try to assess the impact of Trump's tariff policies on global price pressures. Australian consumer prices on Wednesday are expected to have held steady in February, which could support the still cautious Reserve Bank of Australia's patient approach to future rate cuts. Tokyo inflation is due on Friday, as the Bank of Japan continues to monitor mounting domestic price pressures that could warrant further monetary tightening.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
Prime Minister Drew continues support of Cuba's medical missions at OECS 76th meeting. Shanice Harvey, 18, identified as victim of White Gate accident. U.S. visa restriction proposals draw ire from Caribbean leaders and nationals. Southwell Street roadwork project begins in Newtown.
St. Kitts to host a Carrie Lake conference focused on human resource, corporate communications, and customer service.
Guyana president says no dialogue with Venezuela to be had under duress. ECHO appeals landmark copyright case in Dominica. Internationally, U.S. economy under pressure. Inflation and unemployment have risen for 2025.
Thank you for listening.